Charlie, when I get up, I have to leave the podium and then go back to the computer to be able to start running the presentation. So it takes some time between me leaving.
Have you seen me walk?
Thank you so much.
Still holding it on.
Good afternoon, everyone. If I could have everyone take their seats, please. Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Sutcliffe-Jones, and I have the privilege of serving you as your Director of Communications for Community Services Associates. I'd like to welcome each of you to the 2017-2018 Community Services Associates and the Association of Sea Pines Plantation Property Owners Annual Meeting. In addition to the over 350 property owners in attendance in the meeting, we also have 135 participant property owners joining us via webinar and conference call. Thank you for joining. Whether you're joining the meeting in person or joining via webinar, I'd like to thank each of you for being here. A few announcements before we officially open the CSA and ASPPPO annual meetings. From a safety standpoint, please observe where the exit signs are. We have exits back here. We also have exits over here. They are illuminated. So please check to make sure you're aware of where those locations are. According to our meeting schedule, we will be covering the ASPPPO meeting first. Charlie Miner will lead us in that meeting. We'll cover our CSA meeting following the ASPPPO meeting's adjournment. Then we will break for a question and answer session. Questions to be taken from the floor in the meeting room here will be taken from these two microphones up front. So if you have a question from the floor, please approach those microphones. We ask that you do speak directly into the microphones when you are asking a question. To be able to hear on the webinar as well through the audio system, you have to use the microphone system itself. If you're asking a question via the webinar, we'll turn on the comments box when we begin the question and answer session for CSA and ASPPPO. And again, we will adjourn both meetings. ASPPPO will go first, CSA will go second, and at the adjournment of the CSA meeting, we will open the Q&A. Following the Q&A session, we'll have an hour-long reception. It'll be back here on the pool deck area, so we'll be able to have some food and beverage, so we encourage you guys to stick around for that social hour. We do have a hard set time at the club to be out by 6 o'clock, so just keep that in mind. We have to facilitate both meetings and then as well as a social hour, so we look forward to being able to go to that. This completes my remarks. I'd like to welcome Charlie Miner, ASPPPO President, to the stage to officially open the ASPPPO annual meeting. Thank you.
Amanda said that I had to wait till she got back to the computer. And I said, Amanda, have you seen how fast I walk? Welcome. Thank you for coming here on this beautiful Sea Pines afternoon. I'm going to call to order the ASPPPO annual meeting. First item on the agenda is moving along. Next one. Okay. As many of you know, our secretary, Dan Westerbeck, has resigned, and we have appointed Dick Matthews as the secretary for this meeting. So, Dick, I would ask you, do we have a quorum? We do have a quorum, so we have a meeting. Keep going. At this point in time, we'll start with the financial overview, and that will be presented by Dave Borghese, our treasurer.
Good afternoon. This year, I have the honor of being the treasurer for both ASPPO and CSA. And as you can see, I have two hats. Given the recent social media posts by an unidentified group calling themselves the Alliance, it appears that ASPPO has now devolved into political parties. It's the Alliance and everybody else. So not wanting to be pigeonholed as a member of a party with no name, I'm officially declaring that I am the sole member of the two-hat party. Because I wear two hats, the Alliance has stated that I cannot be trusted to represent the interests of the residential property owners. I disagree in the strongest of terms. My first hat is the Heritage hat, and it represents what I think is great about Sea Pines. We have a fantastic golf tournament that extols the beauty of our community, and it provides millions of dollars to charitable organizations that support our community. It is a hat I am proud to own and wear. But the hat that I will wear for the ASPPO meeting is this hat. It's one that I purchased at the Dead Sea in Israel. And I've selected this for a very specific reason, and you will understand why in just a few minutes. But let me start by saying that the annual report on pages 21 through 24 provides a summary of the past year's financial performance, as well as the 2018 budget. I will refer to some of the contents after I display a couple of charts. The first chart I would like to display is a history of the membership of ASPPO as a voluntary membership organization. And you can see by the graph that we kind of leveled out, at least in 2018, but we're still at about a membership of 70% of residential property owners. Now, while that may suggest many issues to you, but as the treasurer, my focus is on revenues and funding. Chart 2, please. Chart 2 depicts the comparative financial position of ASPPO as of March 31, 2017 and 2018, and then compared to the year end 2017. So let me explain. The orange or the bottom section represents our fund balance. The light green portion or the top portion represents liabilities, and the combination of the two is our assets. The focus on this chart is on the orange section of the bar graph, as it is the fund balance. Essentially, this is the available assets of ASPPO has to challenge any perceived or actual covenant violation by the resort or commercial interests. You may wonder why both March bar graphs have greater assets and fund balances than the December bar graph, but that's because we recognize the bulk of the dues for 2018, which are received early in the year. What will happen is that the assets and the fund balances will decline throughout the year as expenses are incurred. So what is telling is that at year end, we only had $340,000 remaining, while 7 years ago, we had $500,000. To be exact, at year end 2014, we had $494,000 in fund balances. In 2016 and 2017, ASPPO realized deficits, and that has resulted in a declining fund balance. The 2018 budget calls for another substantial deficit that will further erode our financial capabilities. So let's analyze what's happening. The cost to maintain the organization in its current form, it's an operation that eats up about 70% of our current revenues. There is little left over to meaningfully act on behalf of the residential property owners for issues without running a deficit. So in 2017, we incurred a $61,000 deficit. Now, I will tell you that part of that deficit resulted from ASPPO having to defend a lawsuit brought by an ASPPO member. The cost to defend that action, which was dismissed by the court, was more than $10,000, or the equivalent of 300 dues paying members. This is why I have my Dead Sea hat on. We are in a financial death spiral that if we continue down this deficit path will significantly affect this organization. None of my comments are focused on the status of ASPPO as its role within the fabric of the Sea Pines community. My goal is to provide a wake-up call that we cannot continue on this deficit path and expect one day to have the financial resources to represent the residential property owners in a controversial dispute with an organization that may have far more resources than we do. This is a message that I fully expect to be pillared and slandered, but that doesn't solve the problem. I plan to discuss options for change. Hopefully others will have their own suggestions for consideration. But as the saying goes, if you're not part of the solution, you're probably part of the problem. Thank you.
So my wife is wondering as I walk up the stairs whether I will fall down as part of the comic relief. Thank you, David. As a procedural matter, Amanda, I believe I need to ratify the minutes of the last meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. The
Okay.
meeting minutes from May 8th,
So I would ask for the
2017.
board ratification of the meeting of the last minute or minutes of the last meeting. All in favor? Aye. And the quorum? Yes. Okay. Ratified. Does that conclude our regular business?
It does, yes, sir.
Okay. I would like to recognize the board members first. So I'm going to go in order. In this year's election, Bill Johnson and J.R. Richardson were elected. Bill is a new member. J.R. is a repeating member. In the prior year election, we have 3 incumbents that are still here: Mark, Dick, and myself. And we also have Dave Borghese, who you just heard from, Barry Barth, who's out here, and Beverly, who couldn't be here today. Next. So that is your board, and there is an open spot. As I mentioned earlier, Dan Westerbeck resigned. He is moving, or he is going to spend a lot more time in Florida with his family, and I wish him and his family the best, and thank him sincerely for all the effort and work that he put into ASPPO. The ASPPO bylaws provide that the vacancy is to be filled by a majority vote of the remaining 8 directors. It has been the practice of the board to consider any ASPPO member in good standing as a possible candidate. Any board member may nominate any such resident. It is not on today's agenda. It will be on the agenda of the May 17th ASPPO board meeting. So I wanted to close that in terms of how that happens, and that's the process. Now I'd like to switch to talking a little bit about my view of the future of Sea Pines, our community that we so love. Most of us call this place paradise. We love living here. We want to see our community grow and grow better with time. When I joined the board a little over 4 years ago, there was a ton of work to be done to assure this kind of a future. Building on the work of the last board, we set about clarifying and defining our financial needs, our resources, and putting in place an administrative team to run the operations and look at the future challenges. Much of this has been accomplished. Today, I'm proud to say that we have a comprehensive and accurate accounting of our cash flow. Thank you, David, and your team, the financial committee. Our cash flow, our reserves, our revenue, and our expense. I'm also proud to say that under Brett Martin, we have assembled a really outstanding administrative team to run the place. Executive Assistant Sandra Archer, CFO Victoria Shanahan, Operations David Henderson, Maintenance Russell Fredericks, Communications Amanda Sutcliffe Jones, and not to be forgotten, security, Toby McSwain, our humorman for the Wednesday morning meetings. We couldn't ask for a more dedicated and responsive team. They have a sense of humor and they have a sense of purpose. Those who are here before they were here know that what I say is true. Think back to what we used to have. Okay, so this year, as David mentioned, we celebrated 50 years of the Heritage Golf Tournament. That's a lot of years. So, how many of you are 50 years or older? How's your upkeep going? Anyone have some new joints? Maybe a knee or a hip? Maybe some plumbing work called coronary bypass surgery? Or a cataract removed to have clearer vision? The fact is that when we age, stuff wears out. We know that. Me, I'm 76 years old. I had 2 knee replacements, an ankle, miscellaneous internal repairs. What do we call that? We call that aging infrastructure. You can ignore it for a while, but ultimately it catches up with you. We all know that. So guess what? Sea Pines is about our same age, and it has the same problem. Here we have worn out roads, potholes, clogged storm drains, lagoons that look like cesspools, and a bunch of other age-related issues like absolute IT systems and other processes. To add to that, we face another challenge, which is we struggle to hire good security and support personnel in a highly competitive and underserved employment market here on Hilton Head. So far, we can and have made things do. But in a way, time is running out. At an assessment of a little over $1,000 per year, we enjoy one of the lowest priced communities on Hilton Head. In fact, only Shipyard is lower in an annual assessment. Sea Pines is a real good bargain, perhaps too good. We need to face that reality. As David mentioned, within our community, we do have critics. I guess that's a good thing. While I'm not always fond of their approach, I do agree that community leadership to be subject to public scrutiny. But at the same time, we need to find a common ground as to what we are. This community is 3 partners: residential, commercial, and resort. Each one of these has rights that deserve respect. We need to have a shared vision of the future and to come together, not to bicker and squabble. I've heard the question posed, are we a resort with a residential component? Or are we a residential community with a resort component? Perhaps that sounds like a reasonable question. To me, it's akin to asking which is more important, your heart or your lungs. To me, the answer is obvious. We need both. We depend upon each other. That is the way Sea Pines was created, and it is integral today to our existence as it was 50 years ago. But this is also a question that threatens to divide us. I am concerned that the strident voices can derail reasonable plans by setting up the residents and the resort as enemies. What does anyone gain from that? That would be a tragedy. It is easy to assert that this or that's unfair. My experience is that one's view of fairness depends a lot on which side you represent. It is subjective at best. It also ignores the mutual benefit achieved by the more than $200 million already invested by Riverstone Group and the Goodwin family. We quickly forget the major investment they made to rescue our nearly bankrupt community and pay off our considerable debts. Critics also ignore the benefit that we all receive from the spectacular buildings the Heritage Clubhouse, the Plantation Club, and the Beach Club. Our residents play on some of the finest golf courses in the country and recently enjoy a $3 million resort investment to rebuild the Harbortown Pier. All this at no cost to homeowners. The Goodwin family is a key part of our past, our present, and I hope our future. No, they're not perfect. Last year, they withdrew a referendum that would have brought an additional $100 million in investment within our gate. I think they misjudged several issues, particularly including Lawton Stables. I also believe that this could have been resolved. Ironically, Lawton Stables has an excellent local operator and a long-term contract. But last year's referendum and its many benefits are now off the table. I understand that the Goodwin family did not wish to be a part of the controversy that erupted on social media. They wish to be a welcome partner. Hopefully someday they will be. Later this year, we will be coming to you, and Mark will speak more about this, we will be coming to you with a new referendum. It will take a vote of 75% of the residential property owners to pass. That's a big hurdle. It will have the endorsement of the Goodman family, who also have to approve any referendum, and also want to see this community support a quality future with modern and functional infrastructure. This referendum will include a comprehensive real estate transfer fee, an increase to the assessments for the resort, the commercial entities, and yes, us, the residents, as property owners. It is essential to rebuilding our aging infrastructure and supporting our community services of security and maintenance. Critics, like the Alliance, whatever that is, will attack the details and seek to divide our community. They will criticize the resort and our board leadership. They will say that this is not fair and that they could do better. Well, maybe so, but that's not the choice, nor does it reflect the complex reality of this community. If we repeat the experiences of last year, we will accomplish nothing. Will the referendum be fair to all? Who knows? Fairness is always a tough question. It's always easier to complain from the sidelines than it is to participate in the arena. This referendum will be thoughtful to all parties and will be something that we can actually do. That could be progress. You have good boards with good people serving as volunteered board members. We have more community volunteers and transparency than we have at any time in our past. We have a competent and efficient operating staff. We also have a solid long-term partner in the Goodwood family. Let's work together. This referendum can put Sea Pines on firm footing for years to come. It can give us all a positive future. This time, we need to put the rancor aside and see this thing through to a successful conclusion. We need a shared vision of the future that includes us all. In so doing, we can rightfully refer to this place we call Sea Pines as paradise. Thank you for hearing me. I appreciate it. At this point, I would like to adjourn the meeting. Did I get that right, Amanda? Am I done? Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. That was impressive. I'm Mark Griffith, chairman of your CSA board, and I would like to formally call our annual meeting to order. Governance documents require us to meet on an annual basis. First order of business is Carolyn Adams, our secretary. Could you confirm that either in person or by proxy we have a quorum? Thank you. The next order of business is to approve the minutes of our annual meeting from May 8th of 17. This was published in your annual report, and it's been posted on the Sea Pines Living website. May I have a motion to approve? And a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion has been approved. I'd like to announce the 2008 Nominating Committee, its chairman for Class A residential board seats in the coming election year. Chairman Charles Miner, members Dave Borghese and Michael Tucker. There are 3 directors' seats standing for election this year. They're currently filled by Dave Borghese, Barry Barth, and Paul Crunkleton. These 3 seats will serve terms commencing January 1, 2019 and conclude December 31, 2021. The nominating committee and its chair for selecting candidates for the Class B commercial board seats. Don Sigmund is chairman and Mark King, member. There are 2 Class B director seats for election this year. They are currently served by Bob Gossett and Bob Sowers. Should you be interested in standing for election, please submit your resume in care of the nominating committee to the CSA administrative offices prior to August 1st. It's also possible to be a candidate by petition rather than by nomination. Petitions for the residential Class A directors are required to have 50 signatures of residential property owners and must be delivered to the CSA offices on or before October 1st. Commercial candidates may also join the ballot by petition, and those petitions must be signed by 3 property owners. Again, these forms are available to you at the CSA administrative offices. As we have in the past, interviews will be held by the nominating committees in August and September, and there will be held a Meet the Candidates forum in October. We'll mail ballots on November 1st, and results will be available mid-December of 2018. We have 2 board members leaving the board as a result of this last fall's election. They are Richard Spear and Beverly Serrell. Rich and Beverly have been great board members. Rich served on the Finance Committee. He chaired the Governance Committee. Beverly co-chaired the Joint Short-Term Rental Committee. We appreciate both Rich and Beverly's commitment to the community, and we thank them for their service. I'd now like to introduce the 2018 CSA Executive Committee, which I chair. Michael Tucker is our vice chair. Charlie Miner serves on the committee as president of ASPPPO. Dave Borghese, our treasurer. Carolyn Adams, our secretary. And Don Sigmund is our CSA board appointed member at large. CSA Board of Directors for 2018. We're getting there. There we are. In alphabetical order, David Borghese. These are Class A directors, David Borghese, Paul Crunkleton, myself, Barry Barth, Charles Miner, J.R. Richardson Jr., Bill Johnson, Stu Rodman, and Michael Tucker. Class B commercial representatives, elected representatives are Mark King, Don Sigmund, Bob Sowers, and Bob Gossett. CSA appointed directors, Carolyn Adams, Steve Birdwell, Carrie Corbett, and Scott Richardson. CSA committees and their chairs. I chair the Executive Committee. Barry Barth chairs the Communications Committee. Dave Borghese chairs Finance. Michael Tucker chairs the Traffic and Gate Configuration Committee. Charles Miner and Carrie Corbett chair the Gate Entry Committee. Charlie Miner chairs Governance as well. Michael Tucker, Strategic Planning Committee. J.R. Richardson, the Maintenance Enhancement and Major Project Committee. Stu Rodman, Safety and Security Committee. Charles Miner, as I mentioned, the Nominating Committee for the Residential Class A Directors, and Don Sigmund for the Commercial Directors. Before I conclude with my final comments, I want to also recognize the CSA administrative staff, who I, like Charlie, believes is the best team on the island. We have successfully, or they have successfully, managed us through these past 2 years, which were extremely extremely difficult as a result of both Matthew and Irma. I think they've done a fantastic job. As I travel through this community today, it's hard for me to imagine that 24 months ago, we've had Matthew visit, and then 9-10 months later, we had Irma visit. I think the community looks better than it ever has. Finally, I'd like to review our board goals that we discussed a year ago, kind of give you a little bit of update on our progress in those areas and talk to you about several new goals for 2018. Goal 1 was to evaluate our gate functionality and develop a plan to improve access. The gate configuration, starting as a task force, now a committee, have developed 2 scenarios. Brett's going to discuss these in his comments with you. These 2 scenarios are working with a gallery shop site, which many of you have heard about, as well as one without that site. The optimal plan includes the gallery building site. These plans will soon be brought forward before the community for consideration. These improvements will substantially mitigate our traffic flow at the gate and ease access to the community for both residents and guests. Do know that permitting and construction of this project could well take the next 24 months. And also know that it's estimated at a cost of nearly $3 million. We've added number 2, improve conditions of our waterways and our lagoons. We have added staff and equipment to enhance regular maintenance to our drainage system. We've dredged the lagoon along South Beach Lagoon Road. As well, we've secured nearly $650,000 in project funding from the town of Hilton Head for fiscal 2018. In 2019, we plan to add further staffing and equipment to perform small dredge projects in-house. As I've mentioned before, our hydrology study, which we did and completed in 2017, indicated that our 60-year-old drainage system will require regular maintenance as well as replacement over the coming years at an annual cost of approximately $1.5 million. 3, raise the bar on the level of care of our entry corridors. We've performed over $400,000 worth of re-landscaping along Greenwood Drive during the past year. We're improving the landscaping right now as we speak at the intersection of Lighthouse Road and Plantation Drive. A major project this fall is for the removal of curbing, widening, and the repair the roadbed and paving of Greenwood Drive from the main gate. Is it the Plantation Drive or Fraser Circle? Plantation Drive. This project is in our budget at a cost of nearly $2 million. North and South Sea Pines Drive will require this same rebuild. We're doing engineering work on those rights of ways as we speak. That project, substantial road from the Ocean Gate to South Beach, could well be in excess of $4 million. These are just a few of the projects that JR and his team are working on and are necessities that will occur over the coming years. 4, work with the town to improve the Sea Pine Circle and the Greenwood corridor to our main gate. Work has started on the intersection of Greenwood Drive and Office Park Road. Should be completed in the coming month or so. This should improve safety and ease a very frustrating turning movement in and out of Office Park Road from Greenwood Drive. This project, by the way, is being fully funded by the town of Hilton Head. Work with the resort to help them. Number 5, work with the resort to help them secure the improvements to get a 5-star rating. As you know, as Charlie mentioned, Riverstone has withdrawn that referendum for approval. Number 6, reseat the Long-Range Strategic Planning Task Force Committee to update our long-range strategic plan. This committee has been renamed this year the Strategic Plan Committee. It has completed work over the last 14 months. Our board later this month will conditionally approve a new plan. Will be followed by a rollout to the community, and the plan is expected to receive CSA board approval in a special meeting in June. In addition to the goals I've just discussed, we have several new objectives. One, conclude and approve an agreement to increase the daily gate pass fee. We are soon to complete an agreement with the ownership of Sea Pines Center and the Riverstone Group, both of which have approval rights over any increase in our daily gate fee. It isn't true that this agreement is being held hostage or conditional to a future referendum to increase assessments. I anticipate that we will in fact conclude these discussions and CSA will approve an agreement in the very, very near term. I expect that we'll initiate those results as early as June 1st. I've not discussed terms in the past, and we and I have come under criticism for not being more transparent with our discussions. As I am beginning to have confidence that we have a substantial agreement, I would now share with you that assuming we do in fact complete our negotiations, there seems to be an agreement to initially move the gate fee from its current level of $6 by an amount of $2 to $8. Let me conclude, let me finish. It also includes a pathway over the coming years to increase from 8 to 9 and then from 9 to 10. This is assuming volumes don't take a dramatic reduction over those coming years. At the $8 level, this is going to drive additional revenue to CSA of about $800,000. At $4 increase at the $10 level, it's going to amount to about $1.6 million in additional revenue. Lastly, number 2, complete and approve the 2018 strategic plan. As I mentioned previously, this plan has been completed and will be presented to the community later this month. Final board approval is expected in June. Lastly, approve and initiate a referendum to fund and implement the 2018 strategic plan. Once the plan's approved, we will need to initiate this referendum to implement the plan over the coming years. The proposed referendum is expected to be held in the fall of this year and will include the following. As Charlie mentioned, it will include an increase to the resort assessment, an increase to the commercial assessments, an implementation of a transfer fee on all real estate. I emphasize all. This is not just solely residential. This is all real estate transfers. A detailed explanation and rationale for these 4 important revenue sources will be put forward over the coming weeks and months. It's important to know that all stakeholders in the community will contribute to the implementation of the strategic plan. That's the resort, that's commercial, and of course, we residential property owners. We're an aging community, as Charlie has mentioned, and require asset replacement, repairs, a higher standard of care, and finally, lifestyle enhancements. So stay tuned. We'll be releasing information and support for each one of these components as we move through the summer. And with that, I thank you for joining us this afternoon. It has been a pleasure representing you, and I look forward to a successful 2018 and 19. And then you won't hear from me anymore. Brett, you're on.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. Last year, I had the pleasure of standing before you and doing my report with all my slides, and I had a pointer with me so I could point at the slides. Amanda has taken it away from me this year. No, 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 no. I don't want to have to make it struggle. Uh-oh. I better not use it. I'll get in trouble. Anyway, because we have folks online viewing this, it's really hard to follow online with a pointer, so I'm going to try to just speak through the slides. But thank you, Amanda, for letting me know how that went last year. I want to start today by talking a little bit about the beach. We've had a lot of impacts on the beach over the last few years with the storm, with the 2 storms, as well as with a renourishment project. The nourishment project completion was done last fall. Sand fencing is now in place. You can see the nourishment on the left slide and sand fencing that is going in now. It's been completed up from the Ocean Gate to Beach Lagoon and is now progressing south of that to Tower Beach. After that fencing is completed, we anticipate that we will then go forward with the additional renourishment of plants, and the town is funding those projects as well. So that's coming up, and we hope to reestablish all of that and have great dunes being built rapidly as we go forward. We do have a moratorium in place for beach walks. And the reason we have the moratorium in place is because of the projects that are being completed today, which is the fencing and the planting. Once those projects are completed, we'll reevaluate where the beach walks need to be, basically boardwalks need to be to connect to individual homes as well as the CSA and Sea Pines beach walks. And hopefully lift that moratorium soon. Further south, we have the opposite effect in place. Here we're building beach walks now. The moratorium is over, and we are now building a couple of beach walks. Actually, they've just completed. And these are where accretion has occurred over the years. And we have 2 beach walks down there that now span a distance of almost 700 feet, where people were trudging through the sand before because of the distance and the accretion that has occurred. This, we hope, will also help us save those dunes and propel them into the future while people can now access the beach. Now I want to talk a little bit about what Mark mentioned, gallery shops. This is the area we've been studying for gate configuration through the Gate Configuration Task Force. Prior to that, the Traffic Task Force. We've been working on what goes on between Sea Pine Circle and the gate, and also up to Club Course Drive with the congestion, the traffic flow, and the challenges that we face there. We believe we've got a pretty good solution, and I'm here to announce today that we have agreement with Publix to purchase and put into place a new site. And that ugly building on the right will go away. Let's take a look at the plan. It's going to be hard to see, but this is just to give you something in general. But what we have is an opportunity to change the dynamics of the entry. And the big change is that we believe that we will have almost no sale or issuance of passes at the gate. They will come to this site. What does that mean? That means you won't be standing in line in traffic. We will redirect that traffic through this facility. We have 5 booths or windows that you can drive through. So we will be operating 5 times as fast to clear traffic through than we do at the gate today. Those who miss this opportunity and go to the gate will turn around and send back to the facility to get their passes processed. It also resolves our challenge with the pass office in running 2 operations at the pass office and issuing passes for guests that you call in there, and then we sell passes for guests who arrive at the gate This will all be done at the same facility now at the pass office, that is now the gallery of shops. We're excited about this. We think this is going to be a game changer for entry into sea pines, and it's going to really propel us and prepare us for the future. And we hope that what we're going to do is going to make your experience arriving home to sea pines much, much better. On the diagram, you'll see that we have a couple of considerations. The same entrance that is now going into Publix, and we are continuing our discussions with Publix, but we have approval to build this. We'll be working with them on trying to widen that roadway going in and making that 3 lanes so that when people do come to the pass office, they'll be able to get into a turn lane and get out of the way of those folks that are going into Publix. Additionally, these lanes and the left turn in, the pass office and a building will be there so that folks that come to the gate that need specific information can now park and come inside. So information requests, as well as those folks that come to us every year, and it happens all the time, come to the office and there's no pass for them. And instead of them having to wait in line, we'll have a nice place inside in comfort while we find out where the owner is that was supposed to call their pass in and try to track them down and get them their passes. So a lot of things to happen in the future. We'll be moving forward with this. I hope to close early this month in May. I mean, not this month, but the next month in May, and to move forward and start the plans and the architectural drawings as well as the permitting that will have to take place to make this come true. One thing I do want to mention on this is we do own the road right-of-way there. So when people are exiting out of this facility, we will build a new merge lane so that they can exit into a merge lane, won't come out into the lane of traffic, and then accelerate till they can safely merge to the left. So a few things that go with this plan, and we have other items as well that we hope to be bringing forward to you in more detail later. Okay, next. Stormwater. We mentioned infrastructure. We completed the stormwater hydrology study actually just before Matthew. We had to go back and update it, as you might imagine, after Matthew, and we have done that as well. This is a challenge. We face all kinds of obstacles, one of which is we didn't know where a lot of stuff was. We didn't have it mapped. Part of our hydrology study allowed us to map out all of the various drains, pipes, outflows that exist within sea pines. And some of them are a little challenging to find, as you might see, as you will see as we go through this.
Next slide.
Go ahead. So this is what we find out there as we go through. Pipes that have roots, not just dirt, but roots growing through them. Caved in, so nowhere for dirt to go once it goes into it or to come out. Lots of blockages throughout sea pines. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of feet of pipes in this kind of condition, all aged 50, 60 years, from various materials such as concrete to metal to what's called Orangeburg pipe, which is not allowed to be used anymore, and we have quite a bit of it out there that has to be removed throughout sea pines. But this is what we see. It's not hard to understand that it's difficult for water to move through this system with some of the lack of maintenance that we have performed over the years. Pipes that are at 70% filled, so only at 30% of capacity, underground from your home to a lagoon or to an outflow. Roots, as I said, growing inside of them that further hinder the flow of that water. You see on the right was the start of a slide where we have a new piece of equipment. Actually, we started working with a provider and just found so many of these obstacles that we need to bring this in-house. And we've acquired some additional equipment, as Mark mentioned. We've also found stuff looking around. When we found an outflow and we found an inflow, we started wondering what was in between those two. Well, as you walk down and you stick a stick in the ground, all of a sudden it keeps on going. Then you dig into that a little bit and you find a grate. Dig a little further and you find that that grate is not only covered by soil, but it's filled inside. So removing all of that and mapping this so that we now have items like this in our inventory and can find them is a tremendous help for our team. And I think you'll find as we go forward with this, you'll be amazed at how much better we can get water to move out of the plantation. So some of the equipment, as we mentioned, an excavator. We have begun clearing ditches so that pipe end to pipe end, water can flow. We have a new, what's it called, Russell? Vacuum extractor. It's a big truck, a big tank that can suck out all the soil. It also helps us go into the pipes with a jetter and to clear it out through a high pressure hose. So these are all happening now. We started this project this year. We will continue it indefinitely until we get caught up with the work that we have to do to make this all work. Next slide. Next year, what we're planning on is, and what we have already done, actually I just approved the bill to pay for the permitting of dredging our lagoons. It's about a 12-month cycle to go through permitting, but our intention is next year to have equipment on hand to do the dredging and to start clearing out the lagoons with the sediment that is built up over the last 50 to 60 years in some cases in those lagoons. Create a much better habitat and a much better environment for the waterfowl as well as the fish and the gators, and just cleaner and less smelly water around our lagoon systems. We've zoned out the sea pines so that we can get a plan on where we can go. Russell and his team have taken the most serious places and prioritized them. Right now, we're working in, we just finished Harbor Town. We were in Club Course. We are back in Club Course today, working around to clear out additional pipes that have become clogged, as well as in some that may have collapsed. Mark mentioned roadways. We completed Plantation Drive last year. That was the first primary roadway in a series of 6 years of primary roadway renourishments and or rebuilding. The condition of some of our primary roadways are in a challenge. We completed a reserve study 2 years ago. All of those roadways need to be either repaved or rebuilt in the coming 5 years. We started with Plantation last year, and as Mark mentioned, this year we have Greenwood Drive from Club Course to Plantation on the schedule. That project is about a $2.2 million project to rebuild that road. If you look at some of the slides here, you'll see some of the faults that are happening in the roadway. The base of the roadway was not built to do what that roadway does today, and it needs to be reconstructed. Ideally, from our engineers' analysis, if we just overlaid this roadway, it would probably cost us about $800,000 and last us about 8 years. So our current proposal is to rebuild it, to extend the life of the roadway once it's done from 8 years to 20 years. And one of the things that I am most not looking forward to is just having to coordinate the project on Greenwood Drive. I don't want to do it again. Once we do this, we want to be done and off of Greenwood Drive and have a great road that we can all rely on for the future. One more thing that I wanted to talk about is our survey. We just conducted a spring survey. It's 2.5 years since the previous one. Amanda and her team did a great job. We coordinated with all the committees, asked questions that they all had interest in so that we can provide those answers back. We will be sharing those answers on May 17th at 2 p.m. At the community center. And USCB, who was the contractor for the survey, will be here to present the findings. Some really interesting things. We were extremely happy to see that we had 2,649 surveys completed, which represented 38.5% of those that were sent out. In addition to that, 2,332 households were represented in the survey. So although we sent them out to everybody, we got 2,332 unique returns by property. So only one or more from 2,300 properties. So we feel very good about it. Our survey geeks at USCB were ecstatic that they got that kind of a return. They never get that kind of a return. So we were pretty proud to see that. And we also were very happy to see that the returns grew over what we did 2.5 years ago. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dave Borghese, who will give a financial summary for CSA. Thank you.
I'm back. Well, greetings to many of you that have been around the block with me for the last several years. This is my third year of the 2-year term, and therefore I am term limited. So you'll be fortunate to listen to someone else next year. So let's get to it. The CSA's 2017 financial statements have been audited by the accounting firm of Elliott Davis. The auditor's opinion report is the same as in prior years. It's essentially a clean report, and copies of the audited financial statements are available upon request. As in the past, there were no accounting disagreements, on any accounting matters, and there were no audit adjustments. I believe the essence of the important CSA financial matters are contained in the 2017 CSA Annual Report, pages 8 through 15. I hope you will find the report to be informative, and I do not intend to discuss what is already printed. So therefore, I'm trying to make this presentation as painless as possible. I feel like a dentist. So number one, that's, I believe, pretty painless. I have 2 slides to present. The first slide is a comparative graph, bar graph, of the financial positions of CSA for the quarters ended March 31, 2018 on the left, March 31, 2017 in the middle, and the December 31, 2017 is the rightmost bar. The bottom portion in light green represents our fund balance, and the orange portion are liabilities, and again, the combination of the green and the orange represents our total assets. You can see that not much has changed from March of 17 to March of 18, so there's really not much to talk about, and so I won't. I've previously discussed why the March financial positions are greater than year-end, as the bulk of the 2018 revenues are recognized in the first quarter, but expenses will continue throughout the year. Painless. Let's go on to number 2. This slide provides a demonstration, what I will call our primary investments. This is the CSA nest egg, if you will. It provides the financial underpinnings for our fund balances for new and replacement of capital assets, as well as incurring the costs of major projects, and as well as the reserve for our emergency purposes. These investments provide significant income used to fund current operations. The bar graph from left to right shows the total market value of our investments for the year ends 2016, 2017, and March of 2018. The light green portion is the par value, and that's what we receive upon the maturity of the corporate fixed income bonds. This is the meaningful portion. It is what we expect to eventually collect over time. The yellow portion is accrued interest, which stays relatively constant so long as we have a portfolio of investments. The orange portion of the graph is the net premium we pay to obtain a bond with a higher coupon interest rate than the current market interest rate. And that orange portion shrinks to zero as the bonds get close to their maturity date. So what can we take from this graph? Well, first, the par value has increased. Despite budgeted deficits for 2016 and 2017, underspending and delays in completion of major projects, I think primarily because we had a couple of hurricanes that caused us to delay other projects that we otherwise would have completed, results in an increase in fund balances. And through our cash management, we have been able to invest more and increase our investments. That's good news. But the 2018 budget calls for a significant decrease in fund balances that will necessarily come from borrowing on these investments or the liquidation of investments. Alternatively, we can agree to support increases in fees and assessments or a continual deferral of maintenance and enhancement projects. The budget as presented in the annual report does not include a call on financial assets for the purchase and conversion of the Gallery of Shops, which, as Mark indicated, is very substantial. In my opinion, there needs to be a recognition that increases in gate fees and corporate assessments alone cannot begin to make up for the years of meager residential assessment increases, which on average annually comes to about 1%. I hope that the constant harangue that revenues must come from others will not blind us to the fact that the residential property owners have a duty to provide the majority of the funding to restore our community, to restore this aging community. But it's really up to you to decide what y'all want for Sea Pines and what Sea Pines can be. Will we continue a stalemate by infighting over issues that cannot significantly change our revenue streams for the revenues that we absolutely need? I know and appreciate that others of you may have a different opinion, but mine is a vision of progress, and I am willing to pay a little bit more because I believe I will get a lot more out of it. So enough said on that topic. As you're aware, being term limited, I will have served 6 years, and so this is my last rodeo. I would be remiss if I did not publicly acknowledge those who have been extremely helpful and supportive. So first, let me mention the Finance Committee. This is a group of really intelligent volunteer neighbors who constantly brought forward financial discernment to all of our meetings. And I truly believe that we have the best committee yet. Second, and this would be again the CSA staff, led by Brett, but includes the financial team of Victoria, Hayes Williams, and Tracy. And I cannot say enough about the quality of their work and the passion they bring to serving our community. So thank you. Third, I would like to thank you for your confidence in electing me to 2 terms, and to the board for allowing me to do what I do. Not that anyone else ever really wanted this job. Finally, and most importantly, thank you, Nancy. You gave up more of my time with you than any partner should reasonably endure. You have listened and shared my frustration with the many of the unwarranted and outright misleading social posts about CSA. You knew I never took it personally. What may be difficult to appreciate is recognizing the improvements of where this community is today versus where we were 5 years ago when I started. Sea Pines is not perfect. We are constantly reminded of that, nor will it ever be. But the journey is one of continual improvement, and to be in a better position to see the possibilities of our future and make informed decisions. I hope I have aided in that journey. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve.
David, very, very, very much appreciated, and you're going to be sorely missed. Thank you. And Brett, good job. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Okay, Amanda, we're going to open this up to a brief period of questions, and I think your plan is to alternate between these mics and
Myself.
the webinar. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And we'll do the best to move this around to wherever it belongs, whether it's Brett or David or Charlie or one of our staff members. Let's begin.
Okay, we'll have folks come to the first microphone. We can start stacking lines at both microphones, and the microphone farthest to the left will be mic 1, and then the mic over here will be mic 2. So we'll take the first question from microphone number 1.
That's me. I have a question about the governance which provided the allowance to purchase the gallery of shops, and what was the procedure, and what was the discussion between the boards, and if there are minutes of the meetings that the discussions were held, if they can be brought out and published.
I don't remember the exact dates, but the contents of the meetings, board meeting minutes, are posted on the website. This was vetted at the board level, and the board did support the acquisition. I'm talking about the CSA board. I believe it was unanimous. Generally, the governance comes from this perspective. Our board has the authority and the responsibility and the right to act and do anything which is legal. And this acquisition is that.
Now, my question, my Plan B question is, with all of the reconfiguration, who benefits by it?
Well, what's going to happen, this was just a preliminary look of something that we've been working on for quite some time. This will be rolled out in a detailed presentation to the community. We're not perfect. We'd like to think we are. We've worked with site planners, engineers, traffic engineers, the town of Hilton Head. We think that it mitigates, Brett, 4 or 5 of the most significant issues that came out of the survey that we did 2.5 years ago. That's why we are ordering.
It seems to me, we have a problem with the gate issue. But it seems to me that it's going to be benefiting the day trippers, making it easy access for them to come in. No, it's the day trippers that.
Thank you. We're not going to have a debate. You're going to ask some questions, and we're going to answer them. Let's go on to the next.
Who benefits by it?
We all do. As I said, residents and guests. And the important thing is to get both of the visitors and the residents in through that gate as efficiently as possible.
But who does it benefit?
Thank you for your question. We're going to move to question number 2 to the microphone, sir.
Yes, I'm John Lambus. We live on Tupelo Drive. I'm wondering about the rental gate passes. They have stopped May 1, and now we have to request them, we have to mail them to our people, etc. I understand there's a couple of plantations on the island that have ABDI software, and I think, is it correct that we have it as well?
It is being installed as we speak, and we anticipate that it will be operable in the fall, winter.
And at that point, we will be able to request an email, passes, et cetera, that with their, what is it called? Gate access software.
You will be able to do that, request it online. The fulfillment will probably be through another method. We still have to issue a pass of some sort to that person so that we can identify that person when they come to the gate and pass them through. And our anticipation is that we will transition that issuance of the pass from the gate where it is today or the current pass office to the new Gallery of Shops building, the new pass office that would take that place. However, for this year, we are moving forward with those folks that have rental properties that primarily use VRBO and self-manage, to ask them to try to get that out through either a voucher system or have passes, a weekly pass purchased at the gate, or to pre-send that pass to them until we can get the rest of this resolved.
And that might kick in the fall?
Well, the construction, as Mark said, the construction could.
No, not the.
ABDI
gates.
would, yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
perfect.
Yes,
Thank you.
probably fall, winter, somewhere in there. We have to test it a little while.
All right, great.
Thank you for your question. We're going to have a question from the webinar. The question is from a property owner. How will the new referendum be communicated differently than the past one in order to get a more positive outcome or vote?
Well, the board voted and finance committee voted to support our engaging a firm to assist us in communications. That firm is from Charleston. Their name is the Lou Hammond Group. They have been on board with us now, Amanda, for 3 months.
That's correct.
To develop a communication plan to put this before not only the 35 or 40% of us that live here locally, but to put this before the 60+% that live off island. We know, and I believe the resort knows, that the communication plan was not particularly well done nor efficient. We've learned from those rules or those mistakes, and we're going to make every effort to see that support for approving a referendum will be in front of you. And it will happen over a series of communications, because this is a complicated potential referendum in that it involves the resort assessment, commercial assessments, a transfer fee, resort and residential. So every one of those need to be explained. You've got to see the covenant language that modifies the covenants to support that. You got to see the financial data that says, why do we need to pay and what will we get for that? So this is something that'll happen over the course of the summer. I would expect we'll mail ballots out around October 1st. So we'll be in position with an approval, and somebody mentioned 75%, and that is a high hurdle, but I think if we do our job well communicating with you, we can be successful with this.
Thank you, Mark. We'll take a question from microphone number 1.
Thank you. Relevant to that topic, I know you don't want to give who's going to contribute what. You want to increase the revenue. Can you give us a rough estimate of what you expect the income will be over a year?
As we go through what I've just described through the summer, every one of these components, we're going to tell you exactly what the referendum will be asking each of the components for. What can I tell you that I think that it will end up generating for us in aggregate?
Yeah. You got to have some idea.
I do. On an annual basis, I think it's in the neighborhood of $3.5 to $4 million.
That's all.
Annually.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. Microphone number 2.
Hello, I'm Dana Advocat from Deer Run Lane. I have a question about the gate this summer. As everyone here knows, we now are going to do transactions for weekly passes at the gate. And I also are wondering where that decision was made, if it was made in the gate committee or at CSA. And I was wondering also if you considered other options. So for instance, at Heritage, there was a trailer that gave out passes, I believe, in the resort parking lot. And if this summer the gate becomes horribly, packed, do we have a backup plan so we can all get home?
Well, the discussions started a while ago, and it really came from our landlord, the resort, wanting to declog their welcome center. And with the challenges on Saturdays and the growth that has occurred with VRBO passes, which have increased year over year, what we call VRBO. It's a weekly rental that is picked up at the pass office. That challenge was given to us by the resort, and when we redid our last lease, we agreed that we would not issue the weeklies at the pass window, the weekly rental passes at the pass window, and the board approved that lease last fall.
I know, I understand that the resort has been asking us for almost 2 years to get out of their welcome center, which I understand, that's okay. But the question that I was asking is that in issuing the passes this coming summer, in that interim period before that we have the gallery building, somebody, some governance in our community made the decision to issue those passes at the gate. I'm just wondering who it was.
As I recall, Toby and Brett worked to find a solution, which is the solution that's before you. I also believed that Brett said in a community coffee when this was presented, that if this did become the problem that you're imagining, that we'd make some adjustments.
What will those be?
So-
What is our plan B?
Well, to begin with, I've seen some social media suggestion that there's close to 1,100 VRB operators in the community. That's just not so. Toby's team tracks the number of rental properties. I think it's in the neighborhood of 1,600 in its entirety. Between the resort, 400 plus, and the 20 other rental companies that operate in here, I think the affected property owner, rental property owner, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 400. And if we're asking those 400 to do the very same thing that the 20 operating rental management company have been doing for years, which is request a voucher, request a pass in advance. Right now, we've said, in the short term, if you don't get that done, we'll sell you a pass at the gate. If that becomes the confusion that you're imagining, Dana, we'll increase the price. And there's some elasticity there which if you don't want to spend the time to accommodate your renter and to help solve this problem, we'll charge you 20, we'll charge you 30, we'll charge you 40. Eventually, people are going to manage this process and not cause the confusion that you're talking about. I don't want that to happen. Brett doesn't want that to happen. And Toby and his staff definitely don't want that to happen.
We all don't want that to happen, but we all also remember the week after Easter when we were pretty much brought to a halt at the gates, not by people buying vouchers,
Correct.
but by day trippers. So I would hope that you have another site that you might be able to issue passes besides the gate.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Dana. We'll take a question from the webinar. The question from the webinar is related to the passes. The question is, if passes are sold online, will there be a gate dedicated to scanning barcodes that will reduce congestion further?
Not initially. Once the gallery shop pass office exists and ABDI is fully functional, a guest will in fact receive, or your residential guest will receive a barcode on their smartphone. And they will be able to go through one of those drive-up windows and have their barcode scanned and a pass printed. In the interim, we're going to have to work through some logistics, but ultimately that's the way it's expected to work.
Thank you, Mark. A question from the microphone number 1.
Yes, Rosemary Kimball. I have a question about just ordinary passes. Recently, you had a statement out saying that you could buy a $6 pass or you could buy a weekly pass. I have never heard of a weekly pass for $20. I'm shocked that we have one. I've been here 24 years and I've never heard of it. And, I think that should be eliminated. I don't know if it was just instigated recently, but I don't think we should be selling weekly passes.
Now, the $20 weekly pass was put into place specifically for this circumstance while we transition into hopefully more owners having us mail them the weekly pass. But a weekly pass has been in place, as far as I know, for years and years. It was $30. It still is $30 if you drive up to the gate and wish to purchase a weekly pass.
So this isn't for a renter. This is just for an ordinary person coming in.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I think we should get rid of it. But I want less people coming and I want them to pay more money. And one thing I've asked before is, have we thought of going to Hilton Head Plantation, which has 4,000 homes, about 10,000 residents? All of these people come in through our gate free. And I think it's time we go to Hilton Head Plantation and have a good sit down and talk with them and say, you know, times have changed. I don't think we can afford to have them coming in anymore. And I know it's in our covenants. And somehow I think we should approach them and try to reach an agreement where they could not come in for free, because, you know, there's everything in the world here for them, and Hilton Head Plantation offers nothing to us. So I think that's something we really, the question is, well, the Hilton Head Plantation people can come in without paying with their passes. And I know 50 years ago, it was a wonderful idea when Charles was selling the property. But now, you know, we have many people coming here from Hilton Head Plantation that I know of that come here and use our beaches and come in here, you know, for all of the activities. So I think that's something we should approach.
And one thing I want to mention about ABDI, which we think Hilton Head Plantation is also implementing. There's a good idea here that we will be able to see. You know, right now, I don't know how many people come in from Hilton Head Plantation. We couldn't tell you, Toby, and you know, we don't count those passes. But with ABDI, with the same processor that they have, we'll be able to count them, and we'll be able to understand how much of an impact they are making on our overall traffic.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. We'll take a question from microphone number 2.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
My question, I almost forgot my question when the Hilton Head issue came up. I think we should keep the Hilton Head reciprocal agreement myself, but continuing. My question is really a covenant issue. You saw on the slides that ASPPO has no money. Now we're talking about the strategic referendum. Why can't a portion of that money be diverted to ASPPO to enforce our current or even new covenants if some are rewritten?
ASPPO is not exactly without money. We have a fairly significant reserve. It's in the neighborhood of what, $350,000? $340,000. Well, it declines depending on what kind of an expense level we experience. We experienced an extraordinary level of expense last year for a variety of reasons. Probably one of the most significant was the proposed resort referendum, which took a considerable amount of legal expense to analyze. In my view, that's not just wasted money. We now have a reservoir of knowledge relative to the covenants and to our rights and obligations, what our legal opportunities are should we ever choose to use them. And so we bought something for that money. And will we be spending that kind of money again? At this point in time, I don't think we will have that kind of an expense level in the days going forward. ASPPO by design and by creation is a voluntary organization. So the way to fund ASPPO is through its dues process. We're currently in the process of rewriting the bylaws which forbid any increase in the dues at this point in time, among a lot of other archaic and inappropriate requirements within our bylaws. So I think that it's important for us to have a credible balance, and I think we have a credible balance at this point in time, and I believe that as we rewrite the bylaws and go forward, we will maintain a credible balance.
Okay, let me follow up just a little bit. Who is funding the new group that Dick Matthews is heading up regarding property, et cetera? And I travel this plantation every week, all over it. And I see covenant violations, things that are going on. And only David Risk, as far as I know, has any enforcement, and he can only write letters. So you say we got money. I think it takes more money to put teeth into these covenants. And I'll quit at that. Thank you, Charlie.
Right. You bring up a point that is a difficult one in the United States in general, and that is individual property rights. And what right does an organization like CSA or ASPPO have to wade in and do something to a property? I think Dick has done a remarkable job and his team in terms of bringing these things to court orders and to looking at other remedies such as the safety and health issues associated with those properties. David Risk currently is an employee of ASPPO. He's an employee of CSA on contract to ASPPO. And I would say that roughly 90% of the violations that he runs into are resolved without any further issue. We are in the process of trying to develop more teeth to deal with those really difficult ones like 40 Sand Fiddler. And as we discovered with 40 Sand Fiddler, even when we think we have a solution, it can be more difficult than we thought it was because we have a very organized group of people out there in the banking community that really resist being forced to do that. I'm personally in favor of taking some risk in that regard because we do need to protect the rights of our communities in terms of their safety and their health in particular and their appearance in general.
Thank you, Charlie. Our next question comes from the webinar. What is being done to collect the additional annual assessment fees attributed to the Hurricane Matthew assessment that remain unpaid? Are liens being filed?
Go ahead.
Yes, they've been filed. And the liens have been filed on all outstanding properties. I don't think we have any left that are on any kind of a payment program at this point. So yes, we have filed liens on each of those properties.
Their passcodes as well.
And it's worthy of note, it's down to about 30.
Right.
Okay. Uncollected.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll take a question from microphone number 1.
Just 2 quick ones if I could. In addition to Hilton Head Plantation, I understand that other residents of plantations in Hilton Head can buy an annual pass. Is that true? And if so, do we understand the dynamics of that, the price we're charging, the number of times they come in and out? And also I wanted to ask about the trolley. I understand CSA pays for all the trolleys. So what are the dynamics of that in terms of the gate revenue versus the offset of the trolley? I understand the importance of getting people around versus parking all over the place, but if you could share those dynamics.
First is what was formerly called the Pelican Pass, which is something that anybody on the island can purchase and come into Sea Pines. It's an annual pass. Current price, Toby, $150. Oh, I'm sorry, $50.
Do we understand the dynamics? I mean, how much does that cause?
I mean, we don't sell a lot of them.
Oh, don't.
Quite frankly. I mean, that's one of the, it's not when we think about the complexities at the gate, we could do things to cut those types of programs out, but they're not going to make a significant impact like doing some other things would. On the second topic of the trolley came to a CSA back in the late 90s, early 2000s with the advent of a $2 gate fee increase, and then subsequent agreements to continue that operation have occurred since that initial assumption by CSA. At one point, it was contracted out. We brought it in-house, and I can't remember what year that was, but we brought it in-house at one point, and but prior to that, the costs were basically the same, and it was contracted out. We thought we could provide better service by bringing that in-house. And it's really to try to get people who are in Sea Pines, around Sea Pines, to the commercial centers for them to go to and around. But there are people that come in from outside and go to Sea Pine Center or to Harbor Town and want to jump on a trolley and go to the beach club, for example. But that's the routes that are.
And what are our gate revenues minus, and what's the cost to run the trolley, and what's the gate revenues or X million?
Oh, $2. If you think about the $2 increase, we're about 400,000 a year passes. So 2 times the 400,000, 800,000 on that. The trolley operation's about 350, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Good. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. We'll take a question from microphone number 2.
I'm Don Carlson. Charlie, you and Mark both talked about working together with a shared vision going forward. I've been a property owner for 40 years and I've never seen that, and would love to see the resort, the commercial and the residential property owners on the same page and moving forward with the plans for an assessment in the fall. I hear it. I'd love to see it happen. It's going to require some negotiations though, and I wish that you would get into that and try to bring the parties together prior to going to a referendum. I'm particularly troubled, Mark, with the comment about an $8 gate fee. I think the expectations are something significantly more than that. And if we really were in partnership with the commercial and the resort, and we wanted a 5-star community that didn't have the traffic issues, and had a 5-star resort to go with it, I think that's the best of both worlds. But it's going to require that we work together, and it's got to be some give and take. We need money. 1.8 million, I think, was your number, Mark, from a $10 gate fee. That's what we ought to be doing. Let's get the parties together. Let's get to an agreement on, there are, I think, only about 5 issues that separate us. But I would suggest doing that. And my question is do you think, the two of you, that negotiations are possible to come together as a unified group going to a referendum in the fall?
Our board held a workshop, which includes all the commercial interests and the resort board. And we discussed in great detail the strategic plan that's going to come forward to the board on the 17th of May and that we're going to enroll out to the community. And we talked to them about the financing that's necessary to implement that. And it was unanimously supported. So do I believe we have that in place? Yes, I do. To the gate fee, I don't disagree with you. I'd like it to be 10. It's not going to be 10 day one. I don't have support I don't have support for that. I have support at 8, and it will move forward over the course of the coming years, and we will get to 10. As you know, negotiations are negotiations, and we just can't get there. If I hold firm on it needing to be $10 today, we will have no increase. That's my personal opinion.
I think there'll need to be a show of good faith by all the parties, and that will require some give and take from each.
I would agree with you, Don, and I worry about this community in that we are too heavily dependent on gate fee. Almost half our revenue comes from gate fees. Why do people come into this community? Why do they pay whatever it is, $8, $10, $6, $20, whatever the fee is? We have to be thoughtful not only of what we would like in terms of revenue, we have to be vigilant about what's going on in Hilton Head itself, about the growth of Shelter Cove and other areas that compete with our activities. And I have to listen to the Salty Dog and to other people who are genuinely concerned that their 75% business that comes from outside people would be significantly eroded. So in order to try to accommodate that, we said, okay, let's get there in steps. I'd like to get there in one fell swoop, but let's get there in steps. And if we don't significantly erode the amount of traffic coming in here and we can still retain that revenue, then we'll get to $10. That's a compromise. Maybe there needs to be more compromise, but that was a thoughtful and considerate discussion among parties who have something serious to lose.
The quality of life for the residents, for the property owners, is a significant concern.
Understood.
Thank you for your question.
Do you have any more webinar?
Mm-hmm.
How many?
Approximately 4.
Okay, let's take those 4 plus this gentleman.
Okay.
We'll start with you. and then we'll conclude the Q&A.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Mark. The next question.
If I could, I have two questions. One relevant to the previous gentleman, and that is, what is your expected timing to maybe get to $10? Is it 10 years? Is it 2 years or?
No, it's, again, assuming there's not a tremendous, and I know there's many of us in the room or many in the room that would like to see this result in a 25, 30% decrease. I don't think that's reality. I think there's, the last time the fee was increased to $6, I think we had a 2% or 3% decline, and then it went right back up the following year. If we conclude what we have, it will be $10 in 4 years, I think.
Okay. One of the reasons it went up.
But it will be $9 in the interim.
Yeah. One of the reasons it went up after that is you finished the beach club and everybody wanted to go there. But my other question, let's see, which one was it? Because I had several. Oh, that has to do with the beach policy, beach parking policy. We've owned our townhouse for about 24 years and people love to go there. And I really like to understand how this 50 space designation is going to work. Because I can't visualize what I can tell my renters when they can go and when they can't go. I could tell them the number, but I'm confused about how it's going to work.
Well, Steve's here, he can tell me if I get this right. Your renters will not be permitted to park at the beach club at all, as I understand it. Am I right? They can be part of the 50?
Part of the 50,
okay.
That's right.
Once those 50 are either filled by residents or your
everybody
guests,
but day trippers is the way I see it.
You get pushed across the street.
Right.
Right? And residents and their guests can park over there for free.
But what I'm wondering is, how are you going to know when those 50 spaces are taken?
During the heat of the season, which I think is your May through August, is that right? They'll have it manned.
Okay, but if there's already 30 spaces taken, are we still going to get 50 on top of that? Or only 20? I mean, if somebody comes in for sunrise.
20.
20?
Is that right, Steve? 50 total. 50 total.
Okay. Okay. And if some people leave those spaces, can a renter go in then? Once you've achieved 50 and drop down below 50?
Yes. It'll be monitored.
And the guards will know that?
That's what we understand. Yes.
Wow.
That's the plan.
Wow. Good luck.
Well,
thank you.
Amanda.
Okay, so we have a few additional questions from the webinar. This question is from a property owner. He states that he was given information from a CSA representative that the town of Hilton Head Island is responsible for repairing and replacing the Sea Pines stormwater systems, and that we are under contract with them as well as other gated communities on the island, end quote. He says, if that is true, why did the presentation suggest that the burden falls on us?
Well, there is a stormwater management agreement with the town, and the town's had that agreement in place with a number of communities around the island. It actually expired a year ago, and we've been in negotiation to have it renewed. The town has limited financial resources. We're fortunate in that they've allocated the $650,000 in this fiscal year. They've deferred projects just like we here in this community have deferred projects. There's no guarantee that I got or we got another $650,000 next year. And yes, our engineers tell us that our infrastructure is going to cost upwards of $1.5 million a year to maintain. We can do nothing, and you can be flooded like many of us were flooded during Irma, or we can invest in replacing, identifying, cleaning out pipes so that our system can handle the inflow of water. Would I like the town to pay for 100% of it? Certainly I would. But if they don't have the resources, somebody's got to do it. And that somebody's unfortunately going to have to be you and me.
Thank you, Mark. The next question is from a property owner speaking to the, if there is a daily gate pass increase, will we also increase the weekly gate fee for above $30?
I mean, that the weekly gate fees in the past policy, which would have to be amended to take any increase. That would be a recommendation from the Gate Entry Committee to do that. And I know that there has been some discussion about it, but that is not before us today.
Thank you, Brett. We'll take a question.
Christopher, we'll take yours and then
We have
one
two-
more,
we have
two
two
more.
Would you please? Thank you. I'd like to say how much I appreciate the quality of the annual reports. David, I think they're great. Very readable and lots of information. Thank you. However, my question is, now that we have appointed David as treasurer for both organizations, will CSA now withdraw its conflict of interest policy? Well, you have actually.
No.
Well, the conflict of interest policy is quite clear.
Did you have another question? The answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay, fair enough.
Amanda?
Thank you, Christopher. Our next question comes from a property owner. The question is for Charlie. Charlie, is there anything in the ASPPPO bylaws that would prevent ASPPPO board from initiating a separate campaign to residential property owner members for a donation to a legal defense fund? It goes on to say, if it is not against the bylaws, shouldn't that be considered to create resources to protect and defend residential property owner interest?
We could certainly do that. There's nothing in the bylaws that prevents that. At $340,000, we have a pretty significant fund right at the moment. And at the moment, hopefully, we have, I think, $50,000 allocated for the enforcement of Dick Matthews' program. And if we need more money, then I would be happy to go out to the community and ask for it. But I only ask for money when we need it.
Thank you, Charlie. Two more and that's it. I'm cutting us off, Mark. Okay. So will the Forest Preserve ownership issue be addressed in the 2018 referendum?
No.
Thank you,
No,
Charlie.
that was part of the resort referendum.
That is correct.
And this is a entirely different referendum. This referendum is put forward by CSA and with the approval of the resort. So it's a joint.
Thank you, Charlie.
Let me make a comment there. The lands in question are under a long term. I think it's 99-year lease. And Charlie has said it many times in the past. What's that? 250s? As said many times in the past, the critters really own that. It's not the Goodwin family or the Forest Preserve Foundation. In the strategic plan, you're going to become informed about over the coming weeks and months. Charlie and the foundation worked 3 years ago on an improvement plan to Fish Island, bringing in appropriate parking, bringing in appropriate restrooms, hot and cold running water, a new pavilion, new fishing piers. Roadway moved from back by the sewer treatment plant to coming in off of Greenwood Drive across from the Stadles, additional bike trails. That package back then was about 1.8 million. We think it's probably today, it's more like 2.5 million. That's in the strategic plan. So when I'm talking to you about, this is what we'll come out, we're going to tell you what we need these increases for. But we want to provide some lifestyle and some approved amenities for the residents. So this is not just about stormwater and it's not just about paving roads. There are components of that plan that will enhance your lifestyle. Last one.
Thank you, Mark. Last question. I believe this question is to Charlie. Charlie, the question is related to ASPPPO. What law firm was engaged by ASPPPO? For how much? Do they have a retainer? Why not use the legal talent among the residents instead?
Well, we certainly have a lot of talent in the residents. Unfortunately, they're not all licensed to do legal work in the state of South Carolina. Nor do they all have the same opinion. We use Nixon Pruitt. Nixon Pruitt is probably the one of the best in terms of the type of law that we're involved with, which is South Carolina state law and the review of the covenants and the obligations. We additionally looked at one additional law firm, which was a litigation firm out of Atlanta, in the event that we had to go to litigation. So it was Nixon Pruitt. They are not on retainer. They only act when we ask them to do something. I struggle to keep their engagement limited because I have discovered that attorneys charge a lot. And sometimes you just don't have any alternative. So a lot of that was generated through legal issues that came out of evaluating the referendum, what our rights were in various areas.
Thank you, Charlie. That concludes the questions from the webinar at this time.
I wanted to make one additional comment because I can almost read the social media tomorrow in one regard. When we put forward the strategic plan, that will have a number of items in it. When we look at what we need as a community with or without the strategic plan, there's a number of items in there. None of those are on the credit card. In other words, we're not buying all that. What we are doing is suggesting that these are the things that we need to look to the future. They will go through the normal process of approval and review. They will be reviewed by the public, and we'll take public input, and then we will decide where to go with them. What we need is adequate funding. No business ever ran a 5 or 10-year plan where they knew where every expenditure was going to go. But all businesses that have been successful have provide for contingency and provide leeway to give them the latitude to make those decisions necessary to support the community.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, I sincerely appreciate the nearly 400 of you that came to listen to our presentation this morning. Thanks to Brett, David, Charlie, Amanda, and the CSA staff. And I appreciate that. Was it 133 that were on the webinar? The 133 residents that called in on the webinar. We thank you. We'll now break for a little glass of wine.
If we can have you join us outside on the back patio deck, we'll have our social hour reception.